Thank you all for coming here. It's a little dark, I can't see you, but I was very pleased to see people I know in the audience. Thanks for coming. And I know my neighbor is here too. So, I'm writing a children's picture book about the little girl, in this photo. I think my feet turned the light on. I don't know how to turn the lights back on. Okay, can you see? Great, okay. So this photo was taken by Clem Albers on the day that the little girl and her mom was leaving to Manzanar. And like Joe was saying, at the time when they were waiting, they didn't know where they were being sent. Her mom was 23 and a single mom, and Yuki was 3. Her name was Yukiko Hayakawa. Right now she goes by Yuki Llewellyn, which is her married name, even though she's divorced now. So a family friend actually saw this photo in the paper after they had left Los Angeles and sent it to Yuki and her mom after they got to Manzanar. Here's another photo by Russell Lee. And Lourdes just found another photo. Here you can see Yuki in the big bundle, next to the big bundles, by the train. She has a half-eaten apple in her hand, and she's clutching a little red purse. I know it's red because Yuki told me it's red, even though the black and white photos are all black and white. But I wanted to bring up the little red purse because, as Joe said, you could only bring what you could carry, and the grown-ups were going to carry all the big bundles, and Yuki's mom wanted her to have something to carry, so she carried her little red purse. This is Manzanar. When Yuki got to Manzanar, eventually they had preschool. She had friends and teachers. They all spoke Japanese. Yuki's mom was Kibe, meaning she was born here in the US, in Wyoming, but she was sent to Japan and was raised by her grandparents until the age of 18 when she returned to the US. So she spoke more Japanese at home and with Yuki than English. So I wanted to show you these photos because she had a community. And she was also very mischievous. She and her friends would go to the gardens that people started planting. They'd find watermelons and throw them open and eat them. What I'm going to do is read you just an excerpt from the book that I'm working on. Yuki and her mom were in Manzanar until the end of the war, and then a Japanese-American Buddhist church in Cleveland, Ohio sponsored them. So they had to move to Cleveland. They were never able to go back to Los Angeles. And the world was very different when she left camp. Yukiko longed for her playmates from camp. She missed eating with her friends and racing tricycles. Here in Cleveland, she was the only Japanese-American kid in her class at Clara Morris Elementary School. No one could even pronounce her name. Yukiko didn't know why it was real hard to say, but it was. Mother suggested she could go by the nickname Yuki. She cheered up a bit, hoping a nickname would be one way to be like everybody else. She wanted to fit in so badly. But even with her new nickname, Yuki, she still didn't fit in. Kids scowled at her, making her feel like she was an alien from another planet. What do you mean you come from camp? Manzanar? Is that in Japan? Yuki dreaded lunchtime. Mother sent her to school with onigiri, rice filled with ume, salted plum. Usually her favorite. At school, they suddenly smelled strange. No one else ate rice or plums. No one ever ate with Yuki. The other kids sat away from her, enjoying bologna sandwiches and cookies. They had cookies for dessert. Yuki could hardly stomach her onigiri sitting all alone. She wished the rice in her hands would turn into 2 pieces of bread. Bologna was expensive, and Mother didn't know how to bake cookies. Yuki wasn't shunned just at lunchtime. At the end of school, when the bell rang, her heart started racing as she sprinted toward the door with schoolmates fast on her heels. It looked like Yuki and her schoolmates were playing a fun game of tag as they raced out of the schoolyard together. But the kids weren't running after Yuki for fun. A white boy named David, his 2 brothers, and a white girl named Mary chased Yuki down the street, taunting her with the ugly word Jap. To them, Yuki was still the enemy, even though the war was over. No one could see, but they had pocket knives and even razor blades clutched in their hands. They lunged their little blades at Yuki. When Yuki fell in panic, they nicked her legs and ankles. Yuki always tried to wash up as soon as she got home, so Mother wouldn't see the cuts and worry more. Mother knew fetching her from school wouldn't help, so she urged her, "Run, Yuki, run faster." How long would she have to keep running? It was hard to run away from the cruelty of war. These kids had fathers and brothers who had been killed in the war overseas. That's what Yuki learned years later. Years later, Yuki still had scars from those cuts. So I'll end there with reading from the picture book In Progress. As an adult, she's identified as the little girl in the photo. And it propels her to speak out against the injustice of wrongful incarceration during World War II and wrongful incarceration in the present day. As we learned from both Joe's story and Lord's family story, I think the resilience in Yuki's life is really important to highlight. Yuki, if she were here, you would be able to hear she has a tremendously loud and spunky voice. And that's what I want to show in the story, that she gains her voice and stops running and stops whispering. When she and her mom left camp, her mom said, whisper, don't speak Japanese in public. So she overcame a lot and thinks it's really important to share these stories. She came to Chicago in November to share her story at the Alphawood exhibit that Lord's mentioned. So she worked at University of Illinois as an assistant dean of students. And she spoke to many groups about this history, and most of them had never learned about internment. Here is a more recent photo of Yuki. So I just want to end with a couple of thoughts. Maybe we could turn the light on. But I wanted to use narrative as a way to share this story with a younger audience, just as Full Spectrum is, in the short film, The Orange Story, is using narrative and story to introduce this history to audiences. There's a real need not only to share this history, but to have Asian American experiences represented in children's books. This is from 2015, and as you can see, of all the books published per year, there's only about 3% that focus on Asian Americans. There are more about animals and trucks. So it's really important, and I wanted to let you know that a group of us, many of us are here in the room today, are working on increasing the curriculum coverage of Asian American culture, literature, history in Oak Park and River Forest. So there's a sign-in sheet at the welcome table. If you're interested in receiving information about our effort or joining our effort, please sign in on that sheet. We are also supporting a campaign to hire more teachers of color in the Oak Park district. So I'm really pleased to know that you support this cause. I think it's tremendously important for all of our students to have our true histories represented and to learn from diverse teachers. School curriculum can be really transformative when it's inclusive and reflective of our histories. I've been teaching at the college level for over 2 decades, from California to the East Coast and now in the Midwest. And I will say that I do see some changes. When I first used to teach about this history, I would ask, how many of you have learned this before getting to college? And there would be 0 to a few hands go up. Now, almost all of the hands might go up in class. But what they tell me is it's just one paragraph in high school US history, just one paragraph. So in the fall, we had shown the Orange Story to classes at UIC, and I wanted to share with you what students said, because it's really clear why this is needed. A student said that this was powerful because they could tell it was coming from the point of view of the people who lived the history. And that's not something that they got in that one paragraph. Another student also shared that he realized from that scene when the photographs are being burned, that even today he could really relate to that he realized he had been throwing away his own cultural identity just to try to fit in. And being able to see this film and being able to discuss that and process it has given him a tool to be more resilient and not throw his identity away. So I just wanted to end with that's why it's so important to empower our young people. I have also compiled a work in progress bibliography that's on the back table with books. There's only about 10 picture books on the incarceration of World War II, Japanese Americans during World War II. I think my picture book would be the first one that actually focuses on the experience of leaving camp. So I really appreciate having this forum to share, and we're gonna open it up to Q&A. Thanks.